Good morning. This is Anna Patterson with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thanks for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Director of Housing Policy, Stephanie Watkins-Cruz.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are having a great week so far, and I hope you are staying cool. Just in case any of you are wondering, I would not recommend moving apartments when there's a heat dome outside or a heat wave, whatever the meteorologists are calling it. But I hope you all are doing well and that you're staying cool. We're going to have a pretty quick call this morning. Some of the top things that we want you all to take away from this call. The first two are at the state level. The first thing is that the state budget is still at an impasse. So the General Assembly is still trying to finish up bill hearings this week before their July 4th recess. And it's likely they will take a bit of a prolonged break and then reconvene in the fall. But again, this could all change. There was a mini budget, sort of PPS, that was released. And we're following it a bit more. This leads us into the second thing. On Monday, yesterday, the 23rd, the Senate passed their version of a much-needed additional round of Hurricane Helene recovery funding. The Senate version would add $700 million in state funds to hurricane relief efforts. And the sources of funding and their proposed uses are quite different from the House version. So now the bill will head back to the House, and if they don't agree, a conference committee with members of both houses will work on negotiating a compromise bill. The third thing we want to emphasize is that the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency recently approved more than $6.7 million in funding through the Supportive Housing Development Program for the construction and rehabilitation of 11 different properties that will help boost the state's housing market by improving the stock of affordable housing for North Carolinians with special housing needs. And then fourth, last but not least, today at 2 p.m., the State of the Nation's Housing Report 2025 will be released. And so there will be a webinar hosted by the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. Again, at 2 p.m., the link to register is on the call notes. You can also do a quick search, look up Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies or State of the Nation's Housing 2025, and the webinar will likely pop up for you. On the federal front, there's still a lot of conversation and negotiations happening. Senate Majority Leader John Thune is hoping to bring the reconciliation bill for a vote as early as this week. And while the Department of Housing and Urban Development funding is not directly affected by the reconciliation process, what we do know is that the anti-poverty programs being considered for cuts, Medicaid and SNAP, would be impacted greatly by reconciliation and some of the other proposed budget processes. An advocacy reminder for you all: federal budget and policy decisions continue to threaten the future of key housing and community development programs and resources. Unfortunately, we're going to continue to highlight this and encourage you all to advocate and reach out to your representatives. At the state level, again, we've already mentioned the state budget impasse. The state is expected usually to pass a 2-year budget during the long session, but with budget negotiations stalled, it's become clear that we likely won't have a budget before the state's new fiscal year begins on July 1st. And so without a budget in place, funding will continue at the recurring level from the previous year's budget. And similar to the federal budget, it's becoming increasingly common for the state not to have a biennial budget passed before the new fiscal year starts. And the call notes will include for you a link to a great resources titled "What Happens If North Carolina State Budget is Not Enacted" by July 1st, in case you were wondering. Moving on to some additional relevant statewide updates. Again, we mentioned the good news that the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency has recently approved more than $6.7 million in funding for the construction and rehabilitation of 11 different properties that will help boost the state's housing market by improving the stock of affordable housing for North Carolinians with special housing needs. For those of you wondering about this program in particular, this funding is awarded through the Agency Supportive Housing Development Program, or SHDP. which is primarily supported by the North Carolina Housing Trust Fund. The SHTP finances emergency, transitional, and permanent housing services for North Carolina residents who are at below 50% of the area median income, including people experiencing homelessness, children and youth who are in or aging out of foster care, people living with disabilities, survivors of domestic violence, and more. So we'll have a few links about that program in the call notes for you as well. A really key reminder for folks that the Renew North Carolina Single Family Housing Program has begun accepting applications as of last week. So low to moderate income Hurricane Helene survivors living in owner-occupied homes that have been damaged by the storm can apply for assistance with housing rehabilitation or replacement. The priority will be given to households that have seniors that are 62 and older, children and or people living with disabilities. This program is funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development's Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program, so CDBG-DR, and is administered through the North Carolina Department of Commerce. The applications will be accepted through the end of the year. There are several bill hearings happening this week. There are a few that happened yesterday. Today, we're expecting to see another bill that we've been just watching. Senate Bill 690 will be heard at 1 p.m., the modifying real estate licensing for real estate appraisers. And then tomorrow, there will be a hearing at 11 a.m. for House Bill 59, and that is a bill that looks at expanding elderly and disabled homestead exclusion property tax relief. And with that, I will let you all go. Remind you one more time that the State of the Nation's Housing Report 2025 will be released today. And so the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies is doing a webinar at 2 p.m. You can register today, do a quick search. We'll also have the link to it in our call notes as well. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Please stay cool, stay hydrated, stay safe, and we will talk to you next time.